Please welcome PACT's President and CEO, Dean Miller.
Good morning. Welcome to Phorum 2019. This is our 8th year of Phorum, and we're really excited to once again be here at the Sugar House and present to you just a fabulous day. Many of you are already digital disruptors, but you're going to hear from some incredible experts from around the world today that share stories of digital disruption, not just from a technology perspective, but also from a human capital perspective. So we're really excited. You'll hear more about that really shortly. Of course, we couldn't do this without incredible support from our sponsors, and I want to quickly highlight a few of them. This conference has been and continues to be presented by two lead sponsors, Capgemini Invent, formerly known as Liquid Hub, and Fairmount Partners. Please, a round of applause for our two presenting sponsors. And they are joined and supported also by Bentley, Comcast Business, Dell Boomi, SAP, and Vanguard, all platinum sponsors. Please, a round of applause for our platinum sponsors. And our gold sponsors, Amatec, EPAM, Fox, Rothschild, Osage Venture Partners, and RSM. Again, a round of applause for them. Once again, we've delivered to you our demo pit. 8 finalist companies chosen from a large selection of companies that submitted that'll be demonstrating their technologies in the room behind you. Please visit them. They're on the high top tables in this room behind you. If you haven't already explored the space, please use it fully. Not only is the demo pit and showcase sponsors in this room behind you with food, but there's also food and meeting areas over here, as well as throughout the hall. So please utilize the space to connect with people that you're just meeting for the first time, or maybe reconnect with old friends. Again, in addition to the demo pit, we have 15 showcase sponsors, all showcasing their companies in this room right behind you as well. So feel free to move back and forth. We've really changed up the venue a little bit to allow for a more ease of moving around. Last but not least, I want to recognize and thank our advisory board. We have an incredible group of individuals from the community, and not just when I say community, the technology community, both in Philadelphia and beyond, that have supported our efforts over the years and certainly this year. And this year it's been led by the chairman of our advisory board, Scott Snyder. So here to say a few words, our chairman of this year's Phorum Conference, who is partner in digital transformation and innovation with Heidrick Consulting, and also a fellow at the Wharton School. Please join me in welcoming Scott Snyder.
Thank you, Dean. Hopefully you guys don't get sick of seeing me a little bit later. I have one challenge for you in the audience today at this conference. And it's a question: how much time do you have? And it's something we talk about in the book and I'll talk about later, but how much time do you have as a company to fully unlock the power of digital? And not just technology, but the way you work, the mindset of your company, because that's the only way you're going to disrupt yourself or become a disruptor, which is one of the key themes of this conference. And it doesn't matter if you're an established company that's been around a long time and you're trying to gain that second gear and figure out how to reinvent yourself while you're running your current business, or a startup that's trying to pivot to the right business model to make sure you can get to the pay dirt before you run out of capital. All those are about thinking about, in this new digital world, how do you harness the opportunities that you have and find that second gear? So today's conference is really about the opportunity for the Davids of the world and the Goliaths of the world to learn from each other and understand what insights can they glean. How does a large established company harness their inner startup? How does a startup actually understand how to achieve the scale and the reach and the trust of a large brand? And that's why we've constructed the panels today. As you go through and listen on both sides of the fence. You're going to learn from, if you're a startup, you're going to learn from the large companies and how they're disrupting and how you might partner with them and work together to create an even bigger disruption. So there's a lot of opportunities for you guys to glean nuggets. The day is structured. We're going to start out with a big picture with Peter and Sam really painting the landscape, especially digging into the nature of work with AI and robotics, really changing how we think about workforces, how we think about business models. We're going to have panels that touch on what we think are the key drivers in the experiences of the future. Hyper-personalization and immersive experiences, cognitive experiences, the ability to leverage data and AI, and lastly, maybe most importantly, trust and how we can leverage technologies like blockchain to deliver that. So you're going to get panel discussions on all of those. You're going to hear me in between talk about this topic of how do established companies pull off this trick of running at the speed of startups. And then at the end of the day, we're going to bring it back to maybe the most important topic, because all this technology stuff's great, but it still comes back to humans and behaviors. And so the capstone's going to bring it together to say, what does it mean for a workforce and a set of humans to actually shift to take advantage of all these new technologies and really unlock the power? I can't tell you how many chief digital officers, CTOs I've talked to that have said, we've deployed tons of technology, we've done digital transformation, but we're not getting the impact or the multiple we thought we would. Well, it's basically back to the humans and figuring out how to unlock the capability of marrying humans and technology to drive significant multipliers and disruption for your business. So hope you enjoy the conference today. Take away a few nuggets that are going to help with your own disruption journey, and hopefully we get to interact along the way. Let's make this a great, big conversation. Thank you for joining us. I'm now going to introduce Alan Bourne to introduce our initial trends discussion. Thanks, Alan, from Fairmount Partners.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Fairmount Partners' Alan Bourne.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Glad to be here, and thank you all for coming to Phorum. Fairmount Partners is pleased to continue our support of this conference, and we're happy that you're here. For those of you that don't know, Fairmount Partners is a middle market investment banking firm. We help growth and technology companies in capital raising, in mergers and acquisitions, buy side and sell side, and we're again once again happy to be here. So it's my pleasure and my honor to introduce our first two speakers, Sam Stern and Peter Coffey. So Sam is a principal analyst in Forrester's customer experience research practice. His research topics include customer-centric culture, employee engagement in delivering better customer experiences, and how to deploy different research techniques to create better experiences. Sam is also host of CXcast, Forrester's weekly customer experience podcast. Prior to joining the research team, Sam launched and managed Forrester's Customer Experience Council and Customer Experience Executive Program, which are peer networks for customer experience executives. In his role, Sam and his team supported 170 chief customer officers and other customer experience executives at large companies in North America and Europe, partnering with them to help drive customer experience transformations at their respective companies. Previously, Sam managed Forrester's customer experience consulting practice. Peter Coffey, who has been with us 7 of these 8 years, and we're thrilled to have him back. He's been with Salesforce for 11 years. His global work supports Salesforce efforts in CIO strategies, security practices, and delivery of connected product and big data solutions through collaboration with account teams in many industries. Prior to joining Salesforce, Peter spent 18 years as a technology analyst, columnist, and editor for IT publications, including eWeek and PC Week, while also contributing to other journals, including Computer Language and AI Experts. He has written widely on cloud security and privacy, and was a chapter contributor to Prentice Hall's Nanotechnology, Science, Innovation, and Opportunity. He previously served as the first manager for desktop computing desktop computing planning at the Aerospace Corporation, where he also worked in space asset applications of AI techniques. Before that, he held project management roles at Exxon Corporation, including Arctic Resource Development. Peter received his engineering degree from MIT in 1978 and an MBA from Pepperdine in '85. He has held college faculty appointments in expert systems programming, IT management, and business analytics, while also lecturing at Stanford, Caltech, Harvard Business School, and the Sloan School of Management at MIT, as well as other institutions in Europe, Asia, South America. He advises on curriculum and degree programs, planning in analytics and big data initiatives for 3 universities. So hope you enjoy the presentation. I think it's going to be great. Let me first welcome Sam Stern.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for that great introduction, Alan. I'm going to pick up on a few of the themes Scott mentioned as well in his introductory words, the importance of humans. Particularly, I want to talk about how do you help humans thrive when they're working alongside AI. And this is where we're going. This is our future here. Humans and machines, robots, artificial intelligence, algorithms working together. And you need to bring your humans along on this journey. So I'll talk about how to do that. First, we'll talk about a tale of 2 future employee experience scenarios. What might the future look like? And then I'll talk about 3 principles for creating a great human-machine employee experience, really focusing on the needs of humans in that integration. And finally, we'll talk about recommendations for aiding human acceptance. And this is not to pull the wool over your employees' eyes by any means. This is thinking about their very human needs for helping them integrate and work alongside these new colleagues of theirs that are nothing like their old colleagues. Okay, so with apologies to Charles Dickens, will either be the best or worst of times when we look at future employee experiences. Let's start with the rosy scenario. The best of times. No more scheduling your own meetings. And we're seeing this happening already with tools like Zoom AI, where you can sort of give it an order. You can give I want to talk to Anita next week for coffee, and it will schedule a meeting. It will put it on your calendar. We'll find the opening on Anita's calendar. And this is happening. And if your calendar is anything like mine, this is something where a significant portion of your week is spent in meetings. And so if you can offload the scheduling of that, all the better. Get more of those meetings on the calendar. When you're in those meetings, no more boring work. And so we're seeing AI be deployed in many instances to listen and take notes and capture key items and send those out after meetings. Offloading from us the responsibility of having to listen and engage in the meeting, but also capture notes and capture key takeaways and do the follow-up. And we're seeing AI be used to offload other sort of boring, mundane, repetitive tasks that humans could do, but if you gave them the choice, would rather not do, but are still important to capture notes in a meeting. And having all the information you need at your fingertips. If you think about something like Einstein from Salesforce, it's gathering information, it's using, tapping information that your organization already has and surfacing it to sales reps so that they sound smarter. They're better at their jobs. And this is information that's available, but it would be hard to search through. It would be hard to find, it would be hard to do that at the same time that you're talking to another human. And it would take you out of that interaction, out of that flow. So this is the possibility that we have less work to do, less of the boring work we don't want to do. We're smarter. We seem to have knowledge in the moment that we need. And that all sounds great. But it could also be the worst of times. It could end up looking, well, first like this, that we lose our jobs to the robots. And this is not a scenario that Forrester and my colleagues have done a lot of studying of this as well. We don't necessarily believe this is what our future looks like. Some of us will lose our jobs, but it's not going to be this mass layoff from the robots. But tell that to the people whose jobs are at risk, right? And a lot of people, Pew Research has done a study that shows that most people, in fact, are worried about their future, believe that automation is a threat to their job, and that they are likely to lose their job. It's 2/3 of people surveyed in the US, and it's even higher in other countries. It's approaching 90% in Japan, for example, a place where, frankly, they have more experience working alongside robots. So they maybe know a little bit more about why they fear losing their jobs to robots. We could lose our jobs. Possibly even worse, we could keep our jobs and our jobs get worse. So we work at the service of robots. And really sort of depressing data that from one of our benchmark surveys that we did of information workers, only 19% of workers said that their employee experience was taken into account when their company integrated automation into how they worked. So most of these integrations with artificial intelligence, with robots, from the employee's perspective, how it's going to work for them is not in the consideration set for their company. So their jobs are getting worse. How are they getting worse? Well, we're seeing that people are being asked to do more already. Almost any new channel or communication tool that has come in has not made us spend less time doing things like responding to emails or keeping our inbox organized. Frankly, it keeps going up. And so now, in addition to more email, we've got to look at Slack, we've got to look at Chatter, we're on IM. We're doing all these extra communication tools, and the same thing is happening in many instances when companies integrate an artificial intelligence, that the humans are now responsible for yet another thing that they have to keep an eye on and monitor and manage. And what we're seeing is, and I'll try to be polite in how I say this, that the BS quotient in our jobs is going up. And this is more depressing data. When you ask people how they spend their work week, they now say they're down to 39% of their time on their core, essential, value-adding work tasks. And that is being replaced largely by things like unimportant, irrelevant meetings, not all meetings, but ones that they don't think they need to be in, managing email, and administrative tasks. And all of this automation that is supposed to be happening to give us time back in our days, it's not. It's taking away time from our weeks for us to do our real work. Okay, so we've got two scenarios. We've got one where we are freed to do better work, freed to do what humans do best, or one where we are largely at the service of automated processes and we are adding even less value than we feel like some weeks we're adding already. So obviously we want a brighter future. We want to get there. And I think we can. But we need to really think about how we integrate artificial intelligence in a way that it's going to be at the service of humans and takes into account what humans do well and how humans would want to work with these new non-human colleagues. So three principles for creating future employee experiences that do that look at what humans need to work well alongside robots. The first is free employees to do more important work. Let's reverse that trend of more BS and start to free humans to get back to what we do best, thinking and relating and solving complex and ambiguous decisions. And this is really job one for AI integration. Humans are at work, are overwhelmed by meetings, overwhelmed by tasks in general, overscheduled. And so this is a huge opportunity to get more value out of our human employees, is to free them to do more of their own work. And so what we see is companies, back to my first visual here, are starting to look at giving everyone a virtual personal assistant, someone who can do those administrative tasks for you that are consuming more and more of your time. And this is really, if you think about it, a replacement that we didn't make at work. As we phased out the human assistants who were doing a lot of that administrative work, we thought that software, we thought that the new tools that were coming into the workplace could offload that from those humans, and it largely hasn't, in terms of time, at least. It's largely down to us as individuals to do our own meeting scheduling, our own note-taking, our own follow-up. And so this is where we can start to give humans time back, is by replacing those human assistants that we never adequately replaced in the last 30, 40 years. Second, adapt AI to humans, not humans to AI. Now, this might sound obvious and trite, and yet we are not good at this when we integrate new technologies and new software. So we need to revisit this and stress this. And one thing that I think is a good way to frame this, to do this well, is to look at ways to layer artificial intelligence into existing interaction models. We talk at Forrester sometimes about the concept of a whisper agent, where it can fit into an employee-customer interaction. And we're seeing this in call centers in lots of places. Companies like MetLife and Humana, for example, are using a tool called Cogito, where in real time, the agent will be on the phone with the customer, and the tool is prompting them with information, with guidance about their pitch, their tone, moments for reflecting back to the customer empathy, or showing active listening, all of these prompts that are not taking the employee out of their interaction with the customer, but augmenting it, giving them more information, more data that helps them be better in that interaction. This is an opportunity to really improve for humans and do it in a way that serves the human employee well. Third, make humanness a strength. What do I mean by this? Well, what do we do well? Sort of alluded to this already. We do well at making decisions in ambiguous situations. We do well at relating to other humans. And there's a lot of data that we found to show that even with all of the ease and always-on availability of digital interactions and touchpoints, we still find human interactions more memorable, and they guide more of how we feel about a company. So having humans in the loop is very much still an important part of how you would deliver your customer experience. And you also want to look for ways to preserve human judgment to avoid AI literalism. AI can often be very smart and very quick to get to answers, but deals in absolutes, and so isn't able to sort of show nuance or understand context. I love, there's a tweet here I'm going to read in parts, right? Facebook can tell that I'm bald, but it offers me baldness cures, like Prince William would need here, instead of razor blades, like Adam Levine, who's bald by choice. So it still can't determine intent. And this is where humans have so much value to add for a lot longer, right? What is this person actually saying by talking about being bald or going bald? What do they mean by that? AI can't interpret that accurately today, and you can't be confident that it has interpreted accurately today. So for a while, at least, we still need humans to add that kind of decision-making, judgment, and understanding of nuance to those interactions. Okay, so thinking about those three principles, how do you help your human colleagues with accepting their new non-human colleagues? And again, I want to stress, this is not to fool them or trick them. This is to think about how, when you integrate AI into existing interactions, into your workplaces, what do your humans need to feel comfortable with that, to feel okay, to not feel like they're just going to lose their jobs or lose their sense of them adding value to what you do, being a valuable member of your organization. So first, communicate those time and cognitive load savings that you're giving back to humans. There are huge potentials here for stripping away some of those non-essential tasks that we do and giving the time back to humans to do more important work. But don't rely on your employees to notice that and give you credit for it necessarily. And this is where I love, there's an example from Macy's, who has been working with Microsoft Workplace Analytics to evaluate its meetings. How much time are employees spending in meetings? How valuable are the meetings that they're in? Who's in the meetings? How often do they recur? How long are they? And they've got this whole campaign that they call Time is Money. And they've shared the data. They've been able to eliminate an average of 4 hours per week of meetings for employees, so giving them 10% of their work week back. But they're not, I know this because it's part of the campaign, right? They're sharing this data, this information with employees. They're talking to them about it. And they're highlighting examples of how colleagues are now getting more work done at work, how they're using that time, which meetings are still happening and are valuable, which meetings have been pushed aside or are happening less frequently. They're sharing all of this information both to highlight you've got time back, but also to give people clues and tips about how to use it, and potentially what future meetings they might want to eliminate to help them. This is really important because if you don't highlight these savings, these advantages, employees might not notice them. Second, give humans the ability to modify the machines. What we've seen is people feel comfortable working with an algorithm, working with an artificial intelligence, if they feel like they have some control over what it's doing. And if they don't feel like they have any say, any control, they get worried. And changing an AI model by as little as 2% is enough to make humans comfortable with it, even when they've seen it make mistakes. This is a fascinating study done by a professor here at Wharton. And he found that humans, when they saw AI make mistakes, get the wrong answer, they were less likely to trust it and use it in the future than they were their human colleagues, even when their humans make mistakes. But if they could tweak the model by even just a little bit, tiny bit, then they were okay using AI, using the model, even when they'd seen it get it wrong in the past. And this is when it's doing probabilistic decision making, right? So there's a 2/3 chance it's picked the right option. It means there's a 1/3 chance it's going to be wrong. And so it's going to be wrong some of the time. And it's more accurate than the humans it's replacing in this instance. So you want to be able to use it. You want to have it integrated, but you need to have some human acceptance there. And then finally, explain what the robots are doing and why. I think this is probably the biggest gap between humans and AI. We want a story. We want narrative. We want reasons. So AI must explain what it's doing and why, and it doesn't do this today well. We don't see its work. We don't see how it reached its conclusions. We don't know why it's making the decisions or taking the steps that it's taking, largely. And so this is where storytelling, this is where reasons, this is where showing of work can add so much value to humans then feeling comfortable, feeling like they understand how it reached that conclusion, even if they couldn't have seen it in real time, they couldn't have done it themselves, but they feel comfortable that they're able to do this. So as we integrate AI alongside humans, think about reasons and ways that you can point to, that you can highlight, that are going to make people feel more comfortable with their new colleagues, and think about all the savings and value add that you can do for your existing humans so that you're elevating what they do. You're elevating their work. You're signaling to them, but it's true, but you're signaling to them that you still value them, that they still have a place in your workplaces, even as they're working alongside new colleagues. Thank you. Okay, so Peter's coming up. We're going to have a bit of a discussion now, and I think we'll also, if you have questions, we'd love your questions here as well.
Morning.
Morning. Good to see you.
Elon Musk says that AI is an existential threat to humanity. I take it you don't agree.
Well, I'm definitely not going to argue with him on Twitter about it.
Don't do that.
For sure.
No, let's not do.
That seems like a road to nowhere.
No.
I think that if we are smart and thoughtful about how we integrate it, I don't think it has to be an existential threat to humanity. I do worry as I look out at how companies are integrating it today and how their employees feel about it. A lot of the data points more to that worst of times scenario right now, that companies are not including employees, at least not in a way that employees find meaningful. Mm-hmm. So I do worry about that. Mm-hmm. And I do worry that if we have a large cohort of people who feel like they don't have value anymore, I would be very motivated to do certain things in society, and I think this is almost the opposite of how Elon Musk has been looking at it, right?
Yeah,
He's looking at it as the AI will come in and take over.
Right.
I worry about the human reaction to being thrown out in that scenario. So existential threat, it doesn't have to be, but I can understand the concern.
You can understand that making the wrong choices about how it's introduced
Yes.
is the problem at least as much the manner in which it's being presented to workers as what the actual facts are? I mean, is this as the Nouvelle Cuisine chefs would say, really a matter of presentation here?
Yeah, I like that. I like that that example. Perception is reality when you think about both customer experience and employee experience.
Yes.
What I believe happened, what I feel like is happening, matters more than what has actually happened. Mm-hmm. And so much of it, as you said, is how it's presented. If I worry that this is a prelude to me, I'm training this robot, and then once I've done so, it will take my job, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be happy about that situation,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to be open to working with it. So a lot of it is presentation, and I think a lot of times when I talk to companies about this, they don't know what the future holds, and rightfully so. There's a lot of change coming at them. So I think they need to get to a set of first principles around how we're going to still value our humans in a way that makes the humans feel confident no matter what happens. This organization is going to empower me and trust me and value me. And we're not there right now. in terms of employee-employer relationships where there's that trust. So yeah, I think it's a first principle of trust, and that was a word that Scott mentioned as well, between employees and the employer that has largely gone away in the last 3 decades.
Some of the things that have been aspirational for AI for a long time, like dealing well with unstructured ordinary speech, ordinary conversation. Speech recognition works very well in restricted domains, things like air traffic control or other places where I've got a pretty good handle on what's being said and why it's being said. Ordinary idiomatic conversation. I mean, look what happens when you try to translate the expression "you're fired" into another language and it says "you have been set aflame." No, that's not what it means. And Roger Schenck, I think it was at Yale, said the problem is that getting from where we are now, which is recognition of words, to understanding of intention, as to your point, even simple idiom is hard, let alone intent. Forget about irony. But he said that's a 20-year research problem, but the problem is we said that 20 years ago and we may still be saying it 20 years from now. Do you see the kind of progress that leads you to believe that at some point machines will pass the Turing test? You will not be able to tell that you're having a conversation with a machine?
Yes, and this is where, again, the human role comes back in for me, which is when humans believe that they are a partner in this, their training of the AI, their feedback to it, their coaching of what the meaning is. And we see new roles emerging in organizations where their job is to do this, is to train the AI to get it to make it better at recognizing those idioms or the nuance of meaning or the potential difference of meaning in different contexts from the same words. Humans can add that, and the AI can learn and adapt and grow from that.
Well, precisely to your point, I think Google Translate does in fact say, would you like to offer a better translation of this phrase, and actually invites us all to crowdsource the improvement of those models. Yeah,
and so this is in us, and if we can share that with the AI, it will get better. Again, if I'm in a situation where I trust the relationship that I have with the organization asking me to do that, I'm willing and able to do that. If I don't, I resist.
I sometimes wonder if the problem is that we have been presented with both extremes. Who here has had Clippy offer to help you write a letter? Yeah, it's been a while. We've seen what happens when, frankly, lame and under-resourced efforts to introduce an assistive technology into the workplace produce results that are still jokes years later. And then we've seen movies in which it's imputed that once we've got enough AI, we'll all become telekinetic. And no, that's not going to happen either, despite Johnny Depp, in Transcendence, doing a really good job of making it look that way. The actual reality is somewhere in a complementary middle ground. I think you are so right to be emphasizing the idea that this is about assistive, augmentive approaches rather than imitative and replacement-oriented approaches. And are you familiar with the work that Rodney Brooks did with Rethink Robotics with the Baxter robot, where they said the problem with robots in industrial settings is you have to put them in a cage because if the robot's arm is moving and a human's head is in the way, the human's head won't be there any longer. And they said, well, what if we design the robots intentionally to be capable of working side by side with people, so that if it encounters an obstacle, it stops. And it doesn't do damage. And made the programming model one of literally moving the robots through the motions of doing, say, pick and place work instead of writing code. You taught it by physically manipulating it to do it, and then it had an animated face on a screen that would nod when it got it. And the notion was that in these New England factories, where you had people who had been doing this kind of work for 20 or 30 years, pick and place work, you've all seen Lucy and Ethel on the chocolate assembly line, right? The idea was that this person might not want to stay on their feet for another 10 years, but they could supervise 5 robots. 5 $20,000 robots, which created a category of, robot crew supervisor, did not replace them, kept them at work longer, and also dealt with the fact that millennials will not take pick and place jobs. Now, Rethink, in fact, did go out of business last October. There were other issues with the robots, but I wonder if you feel that approach lends itself to other applications. To say, if you design it ab initio to be an assistive and cooperative technology, you'll get a different result.
Yeah, and I think it's a great example of where the trust element has to be there in the first place. It's a first principle, that the workers trust that this is being done to, not to replace them,
Yes.
Literally, but to replace what they've done and what they don't want to do any longer, and to elevate what they're doing. So if this person is now supervising a team, even though it's not a human team, their job, they've been promoted, essentially.
Exactly.
And the other thing I think is really important to this is their value, what they know, is acknowledged in the creation of the process around the robots.
Yes.
Which is, we're going to have the robots learn from you, human, all the nuances and details of how you do this work. And I think this is a really important point to also, I see this time and time again when companies try to get employees to act in more customer-centric ways. Mm-hmm. And what they find every time when they get into the weeds, and you find the same thing with the transfer to robots, is the prescribed process only applies a fraction of the time, and there is an incredible amount of permutations of that, nuance to how it's done, difference between different employees who have tailored it to their own specifications. Mm-hmm. And if you don't reflect that in starting from the anecdote, the specific, the N of one of how an individual employee does it, and use that as the starting point, mm-hmm. you will miss a lot of the detail that's required for the robot to do the same job well. And that's a way to then bring the human into the conversation, the equation, where they don't feel like all that knowledge, all that nuance that they have gathered over time is made irrelevant and isn't valued by their organization.
This is also a conversation that we're having with our customers at Salesforce in the context of things like our Service Cloud offering and using chatbots, where we say, if you sell something to the customer promising greater efficiency of their call center operations, they may be shocked when their human call time handling on average goes up because now all the routine 30-second calls were being handled by a non-human. Yeah. And they'll say, wait a minute, that was going to give me better performance. Yes, because now your humans are only on the phone to do only what a human can do. Yeah. And so making sure that the evaluative criteria of a successful adoption have been discussed in advance may be very important.
That's right. Automating a process or automating against a goal that's not the right one is not a good situation.
And you'll get what your measurements led you to believe was better.
Right.
Which might even be in the opposite direction where you want to go. We've got about a minute left. Are there microphones out in the room? I want to make sure that I'm not the only one who has the privilege of getting some further context from you on this. I think we've got time probably for two questions. If they are actually questions and do not begin with, well, I have a comment. But
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
One of the things that I thought might be interesting, my name is Matt Bader, I work in healthcare education. One of the things I thought would be interesting to add to your presentation would be the idea of what are the skill sets that people need going forward. Yeah. In our industry, it's all about soft skills, empathy, because there's a lot of technologies now that are coming into play in healthcare in terms of diagnostics, therapeutics. So I was just wondering if you could comment on what do you think.
And to Paul Dougherty's point at Accenture, which is that 50% of companies say their people don't have the skills they need to work in the future environment, but only 3% of companies are increasing training investments. What are the skills development efforts that should be top of mind, do you think, and where money really does need to go?
Yeah. No, and I think it's a really important
point. Great question, thank you.
Yeah. A couple of ways we're thinking about this. One is, I think, we talk a lot about robot sentience. I think we need more human sentience to start, which is what are my inherent traits and strengths and capabilities? What is my ability to adapt and change in digital disruption, in robot and AI integration? I think most humans are not aware of where they stand there. First and foremost, let's start there. Let's help every human know what inherently are your strengths, to know what career paths could you be going into. And from there, I like the idea of training for soft skills. I like, alongside of that, the idea of training for learning aptitude progress, which is to say, help me get better at things like deliberate practice, beginner's mindset, all of these fundamental traits that make me learn faster, make me open to learning on a continuous basis. I think those are going to be core and fundamental to companies that get this right. And what I would say is human workers who want to go to an environment where they will be valued and where they can thrive come what may are going to be looking for those types of organizations that will help them become aware of who they are and that are committed to helping them grow to continue to be able to add value no matter what the changes are in the organization.
And so we come back to one of the first sentences that Scott gave us from the stage this morning, back to the humans. I think we've got the tagline for next year's forum.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank
you all.
everybody.
Appreciate it.